jazz is the expression of the upper class or elite, but to me, jazz is the expression of the complete opposite. It's the expression of honesty and truth, which all good music is. So for me, jazz is just my way of expressing myself, telling my own story, whilst paying homage to things that have happened before.
I think there's still a stigma attached to the word jazz, which is, the all singing, all dancing, in a suit, big band, jazz hands kind of vibe. There's so much in the word jazz that it's so hard to define. My sort of way of looking at it is like a way of approaching music that, breeds sort of creativity and spontaneity.
For a lot of people, jazz is this abstract word, this abstract form of music. For me, I feel like jazz has become that word where I think of freedom of expression, freedom of being in the moment.
There's a constant pushing and desire to say something new, but also fully appreciate and take in what has been said before you.
It gives us a connection of the past, a way of viewing the past. And it allows us to take ideas and inspirations and ways of being and seeing the world and applying them moving forward. For me, then, jazz could be seen as the melting pot, as what happens when all these forms collide, creating something that no one can contain, no one can really put a title on. And it feels like throughout the course of the history of jazz, that's been the one stable, the fact that no one has been able to box in what this music has been, what this music can be.
I'd say improvisation. I don't want to say jazz, actually. Let's stop using that word. Let's say improvisation, because it's a different, jazz means different things to different people. So I'd say improvisation helps people all over the world. It's in lots of different cultures of music, and it's one of the only things in the world that you can't fake.
It's just an improvised music more than I think any particular sound, really. So throughout all the different generations, everybody's kind of put a different sound to that word. But I think it's gonna, it just continues to change what it actually sounds like.
A way for me to communicate in ways that I can't with words and that I can't with action. I think the kind of sound you can make through playing your instrument, especially when you're improvising and writing music as well, channels a voice that you never kind of get out of people.
It allows you to push yourself and keep searching for what you're trying to say in that moment or that context or whatever. I think, of course it keeps it relevant. You're soaking up whatever is around you. That's the nature of improvisation.
Because it's direct to whoever you are, I think it will always be current, it will always be relevant to whatever is happening at the current time. And I think that's why jazz has been around for over 100 years. And I think it will go on forever.
It's a very personal art form to me. And I think with anybody, any good sort of jazz artist that I like, I respect, and I'm sure anybody likes, is completely themselves. And you're drawn to that as a listener. So sort of fast forwarded now in the era we're in, and particularly in London, I think that hasn't died. People still want to be themselves and have something to say. And the commonality, I guess, is built off improvisation. A lot of the things we're doing, it's coming from our, point of view, really. We have our own sort of culture and stories and ideas and way of doing things that is infused into our improvisation and our approach to improvisation. And I think the art form is constantly evolving because, people are always trying to be themselves and have something to say, and people will always have something to say. And I think it's just really interesting as times change and, art reflects what's going on in the world, and look at where we're at and what the culture and the community is like here in London. If you sort of add the sort of jazz ethos and the jazz way of doing things to that, it's always going to breed something really interesting.
I think when people view London, stereotypically they think about like tea and crumpets and buses and buildings and all those type of things that you see from watching television of it from abroad. But I think to me there's a lot more diversity and multiculturalism and dialect that is kind of spawned from the kind of immigration wave of London. But it's got an individual voice of it that a lot of people aren't aware of.
You have a mixture of people who are coming from so many different backgrounds. So yeah, I think a lot of people might not have the correct view or the appropriate view of what London is now. And I think people who are from London or who have lived in London for a while, yeah, I think there's this deep love for London.
Born and bred, I love it, man. I love walking down the road, hearing a Rastaman, then hearing a Cockney geezer shouting for the Gunners, and then you see like a Bengali woman carrying rice going home, and it's like, that to me is just so soulful. I haven't really got that in this way from any other city.
That's kind of part of the beauty of being in such a multicultural city. You, again, like you're soaking up, and maybe you're collaborating with people or musicians from a different genre that brings something else to what you're doing. That's got a big part to play in what we know and love and create. I think people are also like delving into kind of their home, delving into what home means to them musically sometimes. Culturally, where genres have come from, so Afrobeat, soca, Caribbean music, whatever you want to call it, I think that's also because that's the music that we heard growing up, maybe. It's what you hear. It's what you hear, it's what you love. And that's just as important, and that's like just as, it's a pillar, just like going out and hearing garage or house or, dub or reggae.
Just being around kind of sound system culture on like trucks and big sound systems that I used to kind of go to, you hear at Carnival, definitely makes me think about like when I'm kind of in front of a large PA, what is the music I can write that's gonna kind of get the same reaction?
There's been a lot of things that have happened in London, a lot of styles and music and scenes and communities and cultures and whatever. But I think where we're at now, even for the past couple of years, it feels to me the epitome of that kind of mishmash where you can go and hear somebody spinning Pharaoh Sanders as well as, I don't know, Theo Parrish or whatever, or Amphidler. And you can go there and hear Brazilian samba as well as like grime. It's like, I think the worlds are becoming so much more intertwined, and that, people realizing they're not as separate or different to each other as they might think.
Jazz is such a malleable form that whenever you get different spheres of influence, meeting it or attaching themselves to it, then it becomes something else. It becomes something specific to that location. And that's what's happened, I think, in London. What's been happening, but especially at the moment, what we can really see. We can see a kind of branch off the tree spiral into another direction. It doesn't negate the course that the original branches is going in. It just means that there's some other perspectives.
Sick. It's a beautiful thing when something gets attention for its original flavour and taste and what it was meant to be. and it's getting worldwide attention without us having to compromise the sound. That's a positive thing. People are eating off the music we're writing. That's good. You know what I'm saying? It's not changed. It sounds the same. It's getting better, and people are happy to hear what's going on. So yeah, man, I'm pleased, man. I'm happy. These are my friends. You get me? Like, it's not just the scene. That's all it is to me. It's just my friends doing well.
I think community is pretty much important to any type of musical genre. You pretty much can name it that. Behind every genre of music, there's a roster of musicians who probably played together that created a sound. And I think with us, there's no different. A lot of the people who are kind of like you consider the scene or kind of making a name for themselves. We all used to kind of get together and practice and work together. So what we're kind of seeing is just a reflection of, you know, the DNA of music.
It's funny because most of these people, I remember growing up with them. So like Theon, I've known Theon since he was like 12, I was 14. And like, yeah, we've been like doing the same thing for so long. Nubaya, I met Nubaya when I was, I think, 18 or 17. And a few of the other guys I met a little bit later on, but like literally I've known these guys for ages. So it's funny when people are like, oh, where did this come from? And it's just like, look, it's just literally when you grow up around the same people, you listen to similar type of music, you might be from different backgrounds, but then you got that one thing that kind of brings you in together and unifies you.
And it's like everyone's sort of on the same wave path, on the same grind or whatever you want to call it. And it's through that it's allowed people to make music without judgment. It's like a family that you never can quite get rid of, in a good way.
I mean, for me, it's like I've always been inspired by what is happening around us, and I think it is mad important for that to be the case, because I think that's one of the lead factors that is actually turning this into a scene. So instead of everybody just doing their own thing, you know, and creating their music, be like, this is my music and stuff like that, we're very directly being inspired by the people around us. So for me, like, Moses has been like a mad inspiration, and, you know, hearing Theon's band, you know, so yeah, it is very much just the people around me.
It's tight, basically. You know, we love and appreciate what each other's doing. The community is strong in that sense. The foundation is there and it's big and it's strong. And you know, even though, like, I've known so many people within this for time, and that's really beautiful. You can see that within how the crossovers between the bands that we play in and the sessions that we do and the producers that we work with, and then the producer comes and does a live thing on, you know, on a band set is crazy. It's beautiful.
It's amazing, but it can't be, like I said, I'm not trying to sit here and take glory for anything. Like, I was doing my thing, but there was also loads of other things that was going on that were inspiring me as well. So people like United Vibrations to this day is like one of my favorite bands. And, you know, people like Wayne Francis as well, or that sort of 22A. You know, obviously there's Cross-pollination, but you know, they do amazing things and they've got their own sort of thing going on there. And you look at the sort of Alphanist sort of Tom Misch, Jordan Raki, they've got a thing going on there. And, or, you know, going on a couple of years, people like Bradley Zero and Rhythm Section and what they've been doing in the sort of Brownswood world. It's just been a good couple of years, man. And I think independently, a lot of people have been, you know, really trying to be creative and push the boat in terms of their artistry.
Not only the jazz musicians that are hanging out with the jazz musicians and stuff like that, everybody's hanging out with everybody. So you get all these influences from all the producers, all the MCs and stuff like that, and it's kind of become this massive melting pot of all of those sounds together. So I think that's kind of what has really shaped the jazz, you know, in the last few years, really, as people are kind of combining styles that wouldn't necessarily have been, you know, combined with jazz previously.
Yeah, it influences a lot of people, like dancers, artists, and it's incredibly talented as well. Likewise with producers and DJs, like they're being exposed to this new wave of music, and it's like, wow, this isn't just jazz. Like, people can dance to this, and people will rock out to it. Like, and that's what. So it's not exclusive to anybody. If you can vibe and you know how to have a good time, it's for you.
I think there's various different places where people can kind of learn to play, like young musicians. I came from an organisation called Tomorrow's Warriors, which a lot of my peers kind of came from.
And the philosophy of what they've done over the years and tirelessly working with young musicians to kind of bring them to the point where they are now. You know, you look at the scene and, you know, most of the musicians who everyone's raving on about at the moment have come through Tomorrow's Warriors.
It was a platform for us to learn together, and that's invaluable. You can get from the nervous, shy phase to the confident phase together. We built friendships that are gonna last forever. We formed bands and stuff, so it was a family, you get me? It was the opportunity to grow up musically with someone, making mistakes, seeing them achieve things, then achieving the same thing, and like having a legacy of almost like accountability as well as a legacy of support, you know what I'm saying? That's what Tomorrow's Warriors in my era was for me. So yeah, it was important, definitely.
Gary Crosby, OBE. I have to give it to him for sure. There's countless musicians that have passed through his mentorship or just guidance, and I'm lucky to have been one of them for sure. He just simply gave us a chance, really. And I think without him, the scene would be in a very different place. And, you know, you don't have to just listen to me. You can talk to anyone. You can talk to Soweto, you can talk to Eska, you can talk to Jason Yard, you can talk to Nathaniel Face, you can talk to Nabaya Garcia, and, you know, loads and loads of people. And, you know, he's selfless, he's still doing it to this day. So big up to Gary.
The Tomorrow's Warriors came about in 1991. I was a member of the incredible Jazz Warriors. And I just felt that I could add something else to not just the jazz community, but I could also add something else to that dream we had of diversifying music in this country. The music that we love, we want everybody to play it, you know, regardless of your background. I've always had that at the back of my mind. I was never a separatist. I think the things we have in common are greater than the things that drive us apart. It's just, we don't talk about the things we have in common enough, you know, or show them. So Tomorrow's Warriors has space. We provide space for young people to work with themselves and with more experienced musicians. Our experience is there at the service for those young people. What I've noticed with this generation, there's a lot of self-help there. You know, regardless of who they claim has helped get them here and there, there's this internal thing that they can't see the glass ceiling. So there's no fear, you know what I mean? My generation, we weren't aware that we could own things. I think that's the difference. This particular generation, they realise now that they can not only run things, but you own it. Especially the last 10 years, there's been many different companies that have opened up that offer jazz education, whether it's through the academic route, and some of the new clubs, Jazz Refreshed, and Good Evening Arts down in South London. All these things have enriched the ability and our how to engage with the music.
Jazz Refreshed is really the connection between almost all of these artists. They've pretty much all played at Jazz Refreshed. I wouldn't be surprised if they all had in various different projects. And again, like Gary, man, Adam Moses is one of them people who sees people who have talent, and really he just goes on music he likes, but he's not one of them people who looks at your Facebook following before he books you for a gig kind of thing. He's one of them people that just listens to the music.
The kind of music that's been accepted and championed now, they've been pushing it for like the last 15 years, and only starting to get really their due around now. They've been really kind of trying to progress the music.
We were surrounded by incredible musicians who weren't releasing stuff very regularly, and we just felt like it was part of the whole process for us in terms of changing people's perception of the music, to actually get the music out there and just engaging with the music, and making it, like, getting rid of the barriers to it. It's the same with the residency. The whole idea, the concept behind the residency was that we make it intentionally like cheap to get in, so people can kind of experience the music. Our weekly newsletter has gone out for the last, maybe 13, 14 years of doing this. And we've always included other events, other people, other musicians. If you release an album, if you got a gig on, you may have a gig on the same night. And I'm just like, well, some people won't be coming to my gig, they'll come to yours anyway. So let's put them in there. Let's kind of promote the scene, because it's bigger than just our philosophy.
Jazz is a live genre. It's like jazz music thrives from live performances.
There are elements of the way, in this country particularly, jazz has been appreciated for such a long time that hasn't invited a younger generation in until now. And I think, obviously, the venues have a huge part to play in, and the support of venues that are giving gigs to young musicians that are developing.
The venues that allow the music to function before it becomes big enough to get included into like the big proper venues. So, places like the Spice of Life, the Crypt, obviously Total Refreshment Centre.
Seeing the music I love get taken to a whole new audience, I think there's been different contributing factors in that. There's a night that was run in Deptford called Good Evenings, which is run by a guy called Tom Sankey. Nights like Steve's kind of very strongly starting it off, where you'd take a jazz band down and, they'd be playing, there'd be a whole audience of, 17 to 20-year-olds or something like that. And they're all like dancing to jazz and getting excited, someone's doing a solo and it's building and they're screaming, and it's kind of, it's so nice to kind of see that happen, really.
We're definitely getting more of a kind of younger audience, which is great. We're getting more, more black people at the gig, which is great, because when I was starting, this wasn't the case. And it wasn't like, when I started playing, a lot of the gigs I was doing, we're just kind of playing to more middle-aged older people. It's good to get them as well. It's good to play to people your own age and people from your own kind of background. So it's definitely for the better. And I think it's very much down to the direction a lot of us are kind of going musically.
I think what resonates with people is honesty. And when you go to see somebody like, I don't know, Digo and Kaidi or whoever, or myself or Theo, and it's like, it is what it is. It is an experience that could only have been born from, you know, us here in London or in the UK. And I think crowds resonate with that. And the energy from us just being honest and being ourselves and feeling we have something to say and transmit is infectious. And I think people feel that. It only makes it bigger. I've just watched live audiences grow and grow and grow. And the only thing I can attribute it to is honesty. We haven't at one point tried to be anything or say anything we're not.
I think this is the end. Would you have
No, you'll be like, shit, what's gonna happen now?
You
should do some weird fader panning shit when your drum beat. So it's like,
Seeing a lot of these people from like the community, the London jazz community. I don't know, I feel like it's about time there was something out there that had everyone.
Now is a great time to sort of make an album to kind of celebrate what's been going on here in London and celebrate the sort of creativity that's been, you know, been maybe under the radar for a little while, but now is being celebrated.
This album is a statement for what London has to offer. It's not anything, but it is a small insight into what we have for the world. And if you do like something you see on this album, then it can lead to another band, and then another band, and before you know it, you basically know every band. It's a gateway for the London scene, be able to be brought to a global audience.
It's a matter of fixing a historical point and saying this is a certain point within London where something exciting is happening. And I think it's an important thing to do. Because so many periods of time historically can fade away and can be forgotten about because of a lack of documentation.
I'm just happy to be a part of it. We're gonna look, it's important because to me, an album is a documentation of the time you're in. It's a window into what you're up to right now. You get me? From that perspective, that's why it's important. It's important to document things, and it's important to document it now because it's kicking off. Don't want to document it when it's dry. Maybe it'll never be dry. Maybe it'll be like, what's something that's never died and will never die? House music.
Yeah, that's really nice, man. The ending's cool.
I'm happy with that. Can you go back to the piano solo quickly, please? But it happened just then, didn't it?
happened there.
It's basically all over. Is it gonna happen again though?
No, I fixed the pop.
Oh, it's
just these switches. Do you know what I mean?
Such a shame. That was like a magic tape, do you know what I mean?
Yo, Ben, are we ready?
a diary entry of all the, not even all, but some of the people that are making music in the scene. It's a diary entry, like any album kind of is in a way. It's just like a shot of what's going on at the time, and hopefully that was what you'll feel when you listen to it, is a certain vibe that we're all feeling at the moment.
And it's a good opportunity for the diversity of what we all do to kind of be featured as one big frame. There is a similarity between us. I think we all have our own different influences and sounds, and I think it's great that we have this album to capture that and kind of share that to the world.
Which is why in some ways it doesn't make sense trying to like typify or solidify what the thing happening in London is. I mean, this album is testament to that.
The curation of the album was amazing again. Like, Emily's done an amazing job and the whole band to it.
3 days in the studio, however many musicians and a photographer, and it was fun, man. Shabaka came through, made some music.
I think it's amazing that they're all so different. And everyone's making different music, of course. But also it's incredibly uplifting that we're in it together, alongside each other, like fully together.
In terms of our music, I just like it to become recognised as a sound.
That's what I want for the scene, to cement itself on an international level, and the world can kind of get a snapshot of this culture that we have here.
I want the music to reach as many people and, mean something to as many people as possible.
Longevity and joy. Continue to create for the right reasons, because you love it, because you want to share, because you want to learn, because you have something to say.
But most importantly, the future inspired. In 30 years, you've got kids trying to learn the drums because of what they've seen from Moses. You've got young queens trying to learn the saxophone because of Nabaya, trying to learn the trumpet because of Sheila. Let our legacy address women and equality on a racial front. You know what I'm saying? Our generation seems to be the generation accepting the problem the best. And now we gotta be the solution, you get me? That's what I want for the future. And then obviously a couple Grammys.
What's exciting is we don't know where it's gonna go. We don't know what is gonna be the next wave of influences that London is exposed to and how that's gonna incorporate its way into the way we improvise. So the unknown is what I find exciting.
New generations of people are going to come up and they're going to have their own influences and they're going to take the music in their own direction, stuff like that. So I think it's just going to constantly change as it has constantly changed.
To continue to inspire sort of the next generation so I can hear what they're going to mix with it. Do you know what I mean? I want everybody to grow and everyone to do amazing things, man. There's so much amazing music.
The focus coming off the music and onto the characters. And maybe what the whole focus on the London scene needs to be wary of, because that's not what it's about. It's about, surfing the music, and the music is a higher thing. It's more than jazz, it's more than London. It's information and wisdom and sound that's come from way before. And however it's gotten, whichever journeys the ideas and the information contained in the music has taken to get here, it's still here. It's here right now.
For now, just expect more vibes. That is what the community is about. And I expect more from us on a global scale, because we are ready and we're gonna come out there. Because we out here. But yeah, we out here. Yeah.
This is such a banger.
It's still strong, you know.
This and Flowers.
Then go into Flowers, bro.
Hey, Finish. You know when you hear that, it's just
Come on,
Janet Jackson.
Theo.
It's a Rhythm Nation swag.
Bro, drop that bass line, please. Let's just go around again, bro. Yeah. Just gotta throw it, you feel me? And then go into Flowers.
Oh, man. Mate.
For the crease.
Doing Flowers as well.
No, we haven't got it, yeah.